Hi everyone, I was thinking it must be about time for me to sit down and talk about books that I've been reading recently. And I knew I'd read a few things, and I think my last wrap up like this was February-ish, I'll link it below. But there have been 11 books since I last talked about books, which that's a lot of books, so I'd best get into it. So the first book that I read since the last one of these videos was Sea Wife by Amity, Gaige. You'll have to excuse me looking at the floor, that's where my list is. I saw this book at the library on a display. I thought the cover was really nice. I was interested by the title. I picked it up, I read the back, and I borrowed it because that's how libraries work. Yeah, I thought, I'm a sucker for something with sea in the title. So this book is about a family, mum, dad, 2 kids, who go on a sailing trip around South America, if I remember rightly. The dad buys a boat, and there's a whole thing around the finances of this boat, and he has to really persuade his wife that she's going to come, and all the, the stuff around taking kids and taking them out of school. And it's told through the wife's point of view and the husband's like captain's log diary entries. So it chops and changes between them. You know from the beginning that something not good has happened. There's sort of a sinister atmosphere. So I liked that, and I mean, anything to do with travel and sea stuff I'm going to enjoy. So yeah, that side of things I really liked. I did find it a little bit hard to get into. An awful lot of it is around the couple's relationship and how it's affected by the situation that they're in, how that's changed, the fact that there were a lot of tensions between them, and then it sort of everything changes. So it's a lot about their relationship. There was a lot I liked about this book. I just found it a bit hard to get into sometimes. It wasn't one I reached for, and certain aspects of it a little bit unbelievable. But just living in that world for a little time of going on a sailing trip with my family, I don't think they'd be up for that. Shall I try and persuade them? Yeah, I enjoyed the actual, the imaginative side of things. Great, so the second book that I have to talk about today is this one, The Currency Paradigm by Hilary Augustine. Hilary got in touch with me and I supported her through publishing this book. I think it's rather beautiful. And so Hilary is a financial coach, and does sort of business coaching, but it really interweaves with life coaching. And I found this so interesting. I had to get a copy when I'd worked with her on it. And basically she talks about how in life we tend to put a lot of value on currency, on where we are financially, without looking at the other aspects of our life, the other paradigms which also influence what makes us happy, what makes us successful, and how to kind of bring those things together for potential and happiness and all those things. So the 4 things she talks about are, let me remember, space, energy, finance, money, and what's the 4th one? I can't remember. Is it time? I think it's time. And she talks about how those things sort of interweave, and depending on who you are, you will be drawn to certain things, and it was just really fascinating. It's a quick read. There's a whole lot in here. It's so hard to explain how, for me, I read it and went, oh, I get it. Like, the things that I find I have an abundant supply of and the things that I don't, and how that can make things complicated, and how focusing on the things that I am naturally drawn to will help. Also, the thing about it being quite a quick read means that these things that you find inspiring, being able to just sit down and read this in a sitting, means that you can kind of gather that emotion you had when you read it and take that again. Does that make sense? I'm not sure. Anyway, I found it really interesting for framing how you live your life, how you view success, how you achieve success. So very interesting, would recommend. Check Hilary out, she is an interesting lady. The next one on my list is Michael Rosen's Sad Book. Now, I went to see Michael Rosen in March doing like a reading Q&A thing in Sandwich. It was amazing. And I bought a couple of his books ahead of that so I could just, well, read the ones that I'd been interested in reading and that I figured he would reference and that I hadn't read. And the Sad Book, even though, I mean, this has been out a long time and I was aware of it, I'd never read it and I wanted to. Let's see, when was it released? Oh, I can't find the copyright page. There it is. 2011. So when the tickets were available for Michael Rosen, I had to go. Like every event I do, I get asked, oh, are you related? And I'm not. But I feel like Michael Rosen is like a it's like a presence in my life because I do get asked so much. Obviously, I work in the same industry, we have the same surname, and because I work as a teacher, he was the children's laureate, but he also wrote for the NUT magazine. He used to write poems for it. So I've read lots of his stuff, but not, I don't know, I think I've read like odd poems, but not whole books. Other than Going on a Bear Hunt, I have, yeah, odds and ends. And he's so prolific. But anyway, this was the first one that I read ahead of going to see him. It's a children's picture book. I wouldn't normally talk about these on here. I read about 1 million a year because I've got 3 children and my youngest has to have 5 books every bedtime. So yeah, children's picture book. But I'd heard about this, I think, was Michael Rosen being interviewed on maybe Desert Island Discs or Griefcast? Was he on that? Anyway, he talked about this and I had been fascinated since I heard about it. It's amazing. This is absolutely a 5-star read, 6 stars if I could give it that. It is beautiful, and if you have a child in your life who's going through grief, just this is fabulous. It's Michael Rosen's style is very simple and poignant without being flowery, or he just makes simple statements and it's beautiful. His use of language is unbelievable. If you're an adult that's been through grief, also, like, if you're a human being and you want to read something and go, wow, like, really, really good. Really good. So, loved that. My next one was Turning the Tide on Plastic by Lucy Siegl. This was another one that I really loved. It's been on my TBR for forever. I treated myself to it and I loved it. So Lucy Siegl goes through various issues to do with plastics, a lot of facts to sort of back everything up. She then goes on to talk about actions that you can take. It's very practical, it's very direct, straight talking about what the issues are, how serious it is, but it didn't feel like doom. It felt like, look, we can change this, this is what we can do. Yeah, really, really good. If you're interested in, you know, the environment, but particularly plastics, the effects that they have, loved it. Really, it's hard to say more than that. A lot of stuff about beaches, obviously a fan. Yeah, I learned a lot from it. I learned things about recycling more effectively that I didn't know, and I think I'm pretty good. So, excellent book. Good. Next one was Alex Rider, the Stormbreaker, the first one by Anthony Horowitz. Now, I have never read any of Anthony Horowitz's books. He doesn't write in genres that I typically, that I read. You know, action is not my thing. and the sort of murder mystery stuff. It's not me. They're not books I typically pick up. However, he was a guest author at the school I work at, and I didn't want to be in talks. I went to 2, I think, with different year groups. Didn't want to sit there and have no idea really who this guy is, even though I know he's huge, but just hadn't read any of his stuff. We happened to have this, my son had it, so I thought, oh, I'll read it and then I'll know who this guy is. I'm glad I did, because he talked about the Alex Rider books a lot, so at least I had a point of reference. He writes for TV as well, but also all of his TV writing, I haven't watched any of it. I haven't watched Foyle's War. Like, I just have not, it's just not my thing. But anyway, I got him to sign it. I met him on my Instagram. There's a picture of me looking super awkward with him. And I liked it. So it's not my genre, as I say, and this is aimed at teens, although loads of adults enjoy these as well. I will say as well, I'm kind of the wrong age. When this came out, when was it? 2000, and I was 16, so I think a little bit younger than me people would have read this, but I just, at 16, I wasn't, it's not my thing. Anyway, excellent writing, really fast paced. If you like spy adventure stuff, fantastic. I enjoyed it, I read it quickly. It's, as I say, just not my favourite, but I'm glad I had a reference point. I did enjoy it. A lot of kids that I teach read these as well, so just being aware of them and knowing who Anthony Horowitz is, given that he is a huge deal. I liked that. So yeah, if it's your thing, very good, and I certainly like his writing. He was an interesting guy. I would recommend, if he does a thing that you can go to, go along. Him and Michael Rosen, both amazing. Particularly Michael Rosen, because, like, we have the same name. He taught me how to say "we are not related" in Yiddish. Can't remember what it was, but you know, we had a moment. Right, the next book that I have is actually one of his, again, that I was reading ahead of seeing him. I don't have it because I lent it to my mother-in-law, and it is Getting Better by Michael Rosen. So this is his story of when hard things happen and how he's recovered from them. So he talks a lot about when he had COVID and he was really, really sick. He was in intensive care. He also talks about his when his son passed away, which is what inspired the sad book. So again, I just love his writing. I just think it's beautiful. So much of it is so poignant, and again, so simple. He just states facts. He doesn't, you know, embellish it all. It's just, this is the thing, and the way he uses language. I could talk about him for a very long time. I really liked it, particularly a chapter where he talks about writing as a form of healing. So he calls it unfolding, and obviously he does it and publishes the books, but you don't have to. And he talks about how you can use writing in that way, and I found that fascinating, because my first book, Milk, was very much unfolding, and yeah, I really identified with it. I loved it. I identified with that part. I haven't had well, I have had COVID, but I wasn't in intensive care. You know, good Lord. Honestly, it's a Saturday morning. My kids are out doing the Saturday morning things, and I hadn't filmed a video this week, and I've been meaning to film this, and I thought, right, I'm going to take the opportunity, but my brain is fried. So this is who I am on a Saturday. I talk nonsense. It was a good book. I liked it. I've lent it to someone because I liked it. 5 stars. I haven't given star ratings to any of the other books. I have on Goodreads. You can follow me there. I really liked Getting Better, and I would definitely read more of Michael Rosen's books, his adult books, because I liked it a lot. That was what I was going to say. I knew there was a thread of something I was trying to pick up. He talks about in the book, but he also talked about in person, the letters that the healthcare professionals wrote to him while he was in a coma, and of all of the things he talked about when he read out some of those letters, and he talks about it in Getting Better as well. Like, it's powerful stuff, and as I say, it doesn't need embellishing. It's just, look at this, and yeah, Amazing. Loved it. Right, next book is The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. A friend of mine bought me this when I was in hospital in January, and my friends were so lovely and sent me just, you know, things they knew would make me smile, including books. But my brain was just absolute mush while I was in hospital. I had a book with me. It was How to Kill Your Family. And I read like 50 pages of it. I was in hospital for 4 days. I just had no capacity. So I've read them now. So yeah, one of my lovely friends bought me this, and it was weird. Right, Frida, the character in this, the main character, she's got a daughter, she's divorced. Her ex-husband has a new partner, so they have sort of shared custody, and it opens with Frida, I think, going to the police station because they have had to go and get her daughter because somebody has reported that she's been left alone. Her daughter's about 2. It then proceeds to go through the impact that has on all her relationships, on her life, the court case. So what she does, the central thing that she does that makes everything escalate, is she goes out to get coffee, leaving her 2-year-old at home on her own, and she then goes to the office to pick up paperwork. She's back 2 hours later. When the police have gone to get the child, the house is like a total wreck. She's been living kind of really struggling with her mental health, and yeah, she's then gone out and left her child on her own. And that has then implications for her relationship with her mother, with her ex-husband. The custody of her daughter is given over to the dad. And then there's issues around visitation, as I say, then the court case going. All of that I found really quite interesting. And then halfway through, it takes a turn. She has to go to mum school. That's what the court has dictated. And it goes very dystopian. She's given a sort of robot daughter to care for. And it's all very odd and very sinister, and you have all of the kind of interplay between the different mums that are there. There's a separate dad's school, there's the kind of nurses, or I don't know what they're called, the people caring for them, who are odd characters. It goes from being kind of like interesting looking at how this would affect a family to like, okay, I didn't see that coming. Very imaginative. Yeah, so it's disturbing, it's dystopian, it's meant to make you consider certain things about what makes a good mother, and there are issues of race and society and relationships and some really big issues raised. So my issues with this book, the things that made me not enjoy it so much, first of all, that incident where she leaves her daughter at home is referred to throughout the book as her very bad day. And to me, leaving a 2-year-old at home on her own for 2 hours is not just a bad day. Like, if what they were trying to portray is a mother doing something on a bad day that could be judged as acceptable to some, you know, something that could be called into, well, you know, she was under a lot of stress and she did a thing and they're now accusing her of neglect, and is that fair? This was obviously way too serious to be that. However, there's like a question and answer bit at the back with the author where she says she wanted it to be something fairly serious. So that's obviously not what they were trying to do. I think it was the wording of saying it was my very bad day. To me is like, no, we've all had bad days, but I've never left my 2-year-old at home on her own, because that's not just a bad day. Like, yeah, so I struggled with that, and with then sympathising with the character, because I feel like she didn't really take ownership of it other than, well, it was a bad day. And yeah, that made it really hard to identify with her. And I also felt that in trying to be sort of dystopian, questioning, like in the way that The Handmaid's Tale brings light to these awful issues and makes you think about them and is very poignant because of that, I felt like this tried to do a lot and tackle big issues and just get part way and not really fully deal with anything. So it was interesting. It definitely kept me reading, very, very readable, but just didn't quite get the claws into it that I felt it needed. And yeah, I struggled to identify with Frida because, as I said, I think if the wording had have been different, I think if it was that she accepted that she'd had a bit of a breakdown and that, you know, I think I would have viewed it differently. But there we are. So an interesting one. The next one was another one from one of my friends, the Cornish Cream Tea Bus, of definitely your kind of feel good book. So I took it on holiday with me. I took it to Portugal and it was ideal. Lovely holiday read. I like cream tea. I like Cornwall. Happy days. It is what you expect it to be. It's just a happy read. Just, you know, romance, scenery, a bakery on a bus. Like, it's just nice. You know, I just read a dystopian book, so this felt really nice. I enjoyed the themes. You know, you've got the love interest, and is he really a nice guy or is he not? Or all of the things. A nice kind of group of characters, feel-good book. The only downside that I can really give you is that the bus in the book is a double-decker route master, and that is not a double-decker route master. So the cover design, because if if you like your buses, that's inaccurate. Yeah, I liked it just for a feel-good book. It was pleasant, enjoyable, good holiday read. So I liked that, and I would definitely pick up others. There's a whole series of Cream Tea Bus books, and I'd definitely read another one for just, you know, happy, kind of readable, that kind of book. So then I read Us by David Nicholls, and I just thought it looked interesting. This was in the book, you know, the Borough book thing in the hotel. And so this book is about a couple called Douglas and Connie. They've got a son. His name is Albie. And they have decided that they're going to go on a tour of Europe. Douglas is a scientist. He's quite kind of boring, I guess, does his job, quite content in life. Connie is an artist. She's a bit wild, a bit, you know, creative and that kind of thing. Albie kind of takes after Connie. And yeah, they've decided to go around Europe for a bit of a coming of age tour for Albie. Now, their relationship has, well, Douglas thinks everything's fine. Connie turns around to him and says, I'm gonna go, we're gonna split up. And she clearly loves him, but she is like, you know, Albie's going to be leaving home soon. Let's go and do our Europe tour, and at some point after that, I'm going to move out, and I think we're done here. And Douglas is completely, you know, can't believe it. So they just still decide to go to Europe because Douglas is like, well, like, do I really want to go on this big holiday? Things are quite difficult with his relationship with his son, and throughout the book it charts the relationship of Douglas and Connie from its start and the kind of difficulties throughout their relationship and the various rocky parts, and then ultimately it leads to a culmination of does she leave or does she not. I liked this. I think for me, because I'm a science teacher, I like my sciences, but I'm also creative, so I could identify with the characters. I really liked the style of writing. I tell you what I liked was a romance written by a man, because often they're written by women, and so I liked the style of it. I thought it was very kind of the way it made you think about their relationship and then sort of reflect on other relationships, your own, other people's. Yeah, it's got a really nice style. It's quite witty, but it's also very sad, but without being mawkish. So I think for a romance that's, you know, really looks at the minutiae of a relationship over a long marriage, but yeah, is complex. Yeah, I liked it. It was pretty good. Right, then I read Red Sky at Night by Jane Struthers. This was a library book. It's about like countryside wisdom. So it's things like what do you call the babies of all different animals? How do you make jam? Like, what are the different phases of the year? You know, like lost wisdom. That's the idea of it. It was fun. It's a quick read. You can kind of flick through it. For me, I think I expected it to contain wisdom that I didn't know. So I wouldn't have thought that a lot of the things in there were lost. I mean, it did things like it went through different kinds of trees and different kinds of birds. It kind of, there were lots of facts and bits of it were interesting. And I think it's a nice kind of coffee table book or a nice gift for somebody. It's a quick read, some nice little snippets in there. I think I just expected it to have more lost wisdom of like, well, if you take a piece of corn on the light of the first moon and you know, there was some of that. I just think I expected more. I think I expected wisdom I didn't already know or hadn't heard. Is it because I've lived in the countryside for a long time? I don't know. Yeah, it was all right. It just didn't present me with anything very new. Then I read a book that I DNF'd, which was called Not Working, and I can't remember who it was by, Josh somebody. I found it a bit boring, and it's the first book that I've DNF'd in years, because I'm that person who goes, I've started it, it's because I'm a Taurus. I'm like, my husband hates it. I'm like, no, I started a thing. I am going to see it through to the end. I don't care if it kills me. I don't care if it's the last book I ever read, because I read one word a day. I will finish this book. But I got about 50 pages in and I just thought there are so many things I'd rather read than this, and this could send me into a reading slump, and I'm not in a reading slump and I don't want to be in a reading slump, and so I DNF'd it. It was a library book. I gave it back. So there we are. Cool story. Right, the last book that I have to tell you about is Amazon Ads for Authors 2023 by Deb Potter. I am on a mission this year to read useful books. That's why I read, well, one of the reasons I read The Currency Paradigm is why I read Turning the Tide on Plastic. I want to read more non-fiction about things I'm interested in and also author stuff. I'm also on a mission to use Amazon Ads well. So I read this. It's good. It's very, it's just filled with useful information. It's straightforward, loads of useful tips. There's not a lot more to say other than that. If you are interested in selling your books using Amazon Ads to sell more, this is handy. So yes, enjoyed. Good book. And that is it. So as you can see, a variety as usual. On the whole, I enjoyed them. So yeah, let me know if you've got any recommendations of books you think that I would enjoy. As you can see, I read all sorts of things. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you've read any of these. I'd love to know your thoughts, because of course these are just my opinions. In fact, when I put that book on my Instagram, one of my friends went, oh, I couldn't finish this. So it's interesting. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you all soon for another one. Take care.